The fall of humanity. The Xyrr Dominion's fleet hung above Earth like a storm of steel, their massive warships blotting out the stars. Cities that once glittered with human life now burned as blackened ruins. Smoldering craters marked where orbital strikes had reduced entire neighborhoods into nothing but dust. The war was over. At least, that's what the Xyrr believed. Their commanders boasted of the victory. Humanity, they claimed, had fought savagely, but predictably. Their primitive machines, their crude nuclear warheads, their suicidal infantry charges, all had eventually fallen to the Dominion's overwhelming technology. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy would be cleansed of yet another dangerous species. And yet, despite their triumph, the aliens did not feel safe. Because humanity's resistance had been unlike any war they had ever fought. Soldiers who fought until their bones shattered, civilians who made weapons out of scrap, children who threw themselves in a battle with rocks and knives when plasma rifles ran dry. The Dominion had learned that humans never surrendered willingly. They called humanity feral. They said Earth was nothing but a death world, unfit for civilized life. And yet, victory had been costly, far costlier than they had predicted. One alien commander, General Rakoth, recorded his final report to the High Council. Earth has fallen. Resistance is broken. The human race is scattered and leaderless. Their world is ours. Their spirit is extinguished. He was wrong. Far to the north, beyond the cities and the burning fields, deep in the wilderness where the Dominion rarely bothered to go, a man stood watching the horizon. His armor was battered and scarred, patched together with scraps of alien tech and human steel. A hood shadowed his face, though the faint glow of cybernetic implants burned in his eyes. His name was Commander Elias Kade, once a decorated officer of Earth's Defense Force, now a ghost in the eyes of both aliens and men. His unit had been wiped out in the last days of the war, and rather than die in vain, he had retreated to the frozen north, not to hide, but to wait. And he was not alone. From the shadows of the pine forest, massive shapes emerged. A grizzly, towering and scarred from battles past. A snow-white polar bear, her breath fogging the air like steam. Behind them, two younger bears padded silently, their eyes sharp and alert. Brutus, Ivory, Ash, Ember. They had been cubs once, rescued during Black Ops missions when alien bombardments tore through animal sanctuaries and wilderness preserves. Elias had raised them, trained them, lived beside them. They were no longer simply animals, nor merely pets. They were his companions, his family, his soldiers, and they had learned to fight. Elias crouched, running a hand over the frostbitten grass. Tracks heavy, deep impressions in the soil. Xyrr boots. They're close, he muttered. Brutus growled low, a rumble like distant thunder. Ivory lowered her head, ears twitching. The two younger bears shifted restlessly, hungry for action. The aliens thought Earth was conquered. They thought humanity broken. But Elias knew better. Humanity was never about cities or governments or armies. Humanity was about defiance, about surviving when survival seemed impossible, about turning even the wild itself into a weapon. He had watched his world burn. He had buried friends and comrades beneath the ash. He had nothing left but his fury and the beasts at his side. But that was enough. More than enough. From the ridge, he could see them now. A Xyrr patrol, 6 soldiers in gleaming armor, their plasma rifles slung carelessly as they scanned the wilderness. They were laughing, confident, already planning to strip the land for resources. Elias's jaw tightened. His hand brushed the worn grip of his rifle, modified with scavenged alien components. But he didn't signal his bears yet. Patience was key. He let the patrol wander deeper into the valley, where the tall grass grew thick and the shadows stretched long. The moment they stepped into the kill zone, Elias gave a single nod. The wilderness exploded. Brutus charged first, a massive wall of muscle and claws that tore through the alien vanguard before they could even raise their weapons. Ivory barreled in from the side, white fur streaked with blood as she ripped one soldier apart. Ash and Ember moved like shadows, circling, driving the survivors into panic. Plasma fire lit up the dusk, but it was wild and unfocused. Their screams carried on the wind. Elias moved with precision. A shot to the throat. Another through the visor. He was a ghost in the chaos, silent, deadly. By the time the last alien realized what was happening, Brutus had already pinned him to the ground, massive jaws closing with a sickening crunch. When it was over, silence returned to the valley. The grass swayed gently in the breeze, red with alien blood. Elias stood among the bodies, chest rising and falling, eyes cold. His bears gathered around him, panting, growling low, but alive. The XYRR thought they had triumphed. They thought Earth was theirs. But as Elias looked to the horizon, his expression hardened. This was only the beginning. The first hunt. The alien corpses still smoked in the cold morning air when Elias finished stripping the patrol. Their weapons, sleek rifles of alloy and plasma coils, hummed with alien energy. He tossed one to the ground with disgust. Most of the gear was useless, locked behind XYRR biometric codes. But some of the tech could be repurposed, and Elias was a man who had learned long ago that everything had a second life. Ivory pawed at one of the bodies, her nose wrinkling at the acrid scent of alien blood. Brutus rumbled, impatient, pacing in circles as if eager for the next fight. Ash and Ember sat back on their haunches, watching their human with sharp eyes, waiting for his command. Elias crouched, running a hand over the scorched earth. The aliens weren't here by accident. Patrols didn't wander into wilderness like this unless something valuable was nearby. He knew the XYRR, methodical, relentless. They weren't simply searching for stragglers. He activated the stolen communicator strapped to his forearm. Static hissed, then voices emerged, guttural alien speech twisted by the translation chip he had salvaged weeks earlier. Resource Extraction Team Theta reporting. Terraforming base construction proceeding ahead of schedule. Power station arriving in 3 cycles. Patrol Squad Gamma, report status. Elias smiled coldly. Patrol Gamma would never report back. But the rest of the message struck him harder. Terraforming base. Power station. The Dominion wasn't satisfied with Earth's conquest. They meant to reshape the planet itself. Melt the permafrost, poison the rivers, seed alien flora until the very soil rejected human life. If they succeeded, Alaska's wilderness would be gone forever. Humanity's last refuge would be wiped from existence. His bears sensed his tension. Ivory nudged him with her massive head. Brutus's growl deepened. They didn't understand alien words, but they understood his silence, his clenched jaw, the storm building in his chest. They think they own this land, Elias whispered, standing. They don't. Not while we're breathing. That night, under the endless northern stars, Elias prepared. He checked his rifle, his blade, and the grenades he had crafted from stolen alien fuel cells. The bears lay close, their heavy breathing filling the stillness. Around their necks were thick collars of steel, not chains, but armored harnesses reinforced with scavenged plating. Elias had forged them himself, so his companions could endure plasma fire and shrapnel when the fighting began. As he worked, memories returned. He remembered Brutus as a half-dead cub, pulled from the rubble of a destroyed wildlife reserve. Ivory, caught in a snare, her fur matted with blood, freed by his hands during a night raid. Ash and Ember, born in captivity, smuggled out by desperate scientists before the alien bombardments fell. He had raised them all, fed them, taught them to hunt, to fight, to trust. And in return, they had given him the one thing humanity still possessed: loyalty. The Dominion had called humans dangerous, feral, and they were right. 2 days later, the hunt began. Through the scope of his rifle, Elias saw it. A convoy of XYRR transports winding through a mountain pass, hauling supplies for the new terraforming station. Hovercraft glided silently above the rocky terrain, flanked by armored infantry. He exhaled slowly. Now, he whispered. Brutus surged from the tree line like an avalanche. He struck the first hovercraft broadside, claws raking across the hull until metal screamed and the craft tumbled into the rocks. Ivory charged behind him, her white bulk slamming into a squad of aliens before they could raise their rifles. The valley erupted in chaos. Ash and Ember darted among the soldiers, moving faster than the aliens expected, tearing through armor with teeth and claws. Plasma fire scorched the air, but the bears were relentless, driving the enemy into disarray. Elias moved with surgical precision. From the ridge, his rifle cracked again and again, each shot finding its mark. An alien officer collapsed with a hole through his skull. A gunner toppled before he could fire his cannon. Elias never wasted a bullet. The Xyrr shouted, scrambling for cover, but there was no cover from the wilderness itself. The humans' land had turned against them. When the last transport exploded in a bloom of fire, Elias descended into the valley. His boots crunched over alien corpses and twisted metal. His bears circled the wreckage, panting, blood dripping from their jaws. He picked up a communicator from a fallen soldier. Static gave way to panicked voices. "This is Outpost Theta. Convoy destroyed. Unknown hostile present. Repeat. Hostile human combatant accompanied by creatures. Heavy casualties. Request immediate reinforcements." Elias switched it off. He didn't need them sending help too soon. Brutus huffed, lowering his massive head beside him. Elias scratched the scarred fur between the bear's ears. "Good work, old man." Ivory leaned against him, a low rumble in her chest. Ash and Ember prowled the perimeter, alert for stragglers. The Dominion thought they were hunting the last survivors of Earth. But they were wrong. The hunt had only just begun, and it was Elias who was doing the hunting. That night, around the fire, the bears rested while Elias studied the stolen maps from the convoy. His fingers traced the alien symbols marking the future terraforming station. 3 days, he murmured. 3 days until they bring in the main power core. The fire reflected in his cybernetic eyes. Then we strike. And when we do, they'll remember why they should have feared humanity. War in the wild. The Dominion answered the convoy ambush with fury. Dropships thundered across Alaska's skies, disgorging platoons of soldiers into the wilderness. Mechs stomped through the valleys, scanning with thermal sensors. Drones swarmed the forests, their cameras hunting for the man the aliens had begun to call the Beastmaster. But Elias Kade did not run. He fought. From the cover of a ridge, he watched a Xyrr mech lumber through the pines, its searchlights cutting across the snow. The machine was massive, its alloy plating shrugging off small arms fire, its plasma cannon glowing ominously. Elias waited. Brutus crouched beside him, tense but silent. Down below, Ash and Ember stalked through the undergrowth, their paws soundless in the snow. The mech paused. Sensors swept. Its heavy foot settled onto a patch of ground that Elias had prepared hours earlier. The world erupted. The mine detonated with a thunderous crack, flipping the mech onto its side. Before it could rise, Brutus was on it, roaring, claws tearing through exposed joints. The machine fired wildly, plasma bursts searing the air, but Elias leapt from the ridge, rifle spitting fire. Shots slammed into the cockpit, shattering glass, and a moment later, silence fell. Smoke curled into the night sky. Another alien war machine had died in the wilderness. Elias stood over the wreckage, his breath fogging in the cold air. He knew this wasn't victory, not yet. But every strike weakened the Dominion. Every attack planted fear, and fear was a weapon. The guerrilla war grew. Elias hit supply lines with surgical precision. Terraforming equipment disappeared into ravines. Drone swarms flew into storms of gunfire from hidden positions. Patrols returned with half their numbers, whispering about bears with bloodied claws and a human ghost who struck without warning. The Dominion tried to adapt. They deployed heavier units, flamethrowers to burn the forests, sonic cannons to flush out hidden threats. But Elias knew this land better than any invader. The wilderness itself became his ally. Avalanches buried convoys. Frozen rivers cracked beneath mechs, swallowing them whole. Wolves howled in the distance, adding to the fear already gnawing at alien hearts. And always, the bears were there. Ivory, her white fur streaked with soot and blood, crashed through alien ranks like a living glacier. Brutus, scarred and relentless, tore down foes twice his size. Ash and Ember moved with youthful speed, harassing, distracting, striking when least expected. Together, they were unstoppable. One night, as the fire flickered low, Elias sat sharpening his blade. Ivory rested her massive head on his lap, while Brutus sprawled nearby, his chest rising and falling like a drumbeat. Ash and Ember wrestled in the snow, play fighting, though their claws were sharp and their strength growing. Elias's mind wandered. He remembered the cities, the skyscrapers of New York, the neon glow of Tokyo, the crowded streets of Karachi. All gone now, leveled by orbital fire. He remembered the last stand of Earth's defense fleet, burning in the void. But he also remembered laughter, music, family, humanity's stubborn joy, even in darkness. The Dominion thought they had destroyed that spirit, but they had only burned the surface. Deep down, humanity still burned hotter than ever. He clenched his blade, sparks hissing from the whetstone. We are not finished. Not while I live. Not while they live. The Xyrr began to fear the forests. Their soldiers whispered of monsters. Reports spread across the Dominion network. Blurred images of a man in tattered armor, flanked by beasts that shrugged off plasma fire. In their arrogance, the Xyrr commanders decided to put an end to the myth. They dispatched Overseer Xyrr, a high-ranking commander, to lead a purge. He brought an army, 300 soldiers, 24 mechs, and an array of war drones. They would scour the land until nothing remained. From a ridge overlooking the valley, Elias saw their camp. Floodlights bathed the snow in white. The aliens built their defenses high, their machines ready for war. It was not a patrol. It was an occupation. He studied their formation, memorizing every weak point, every blind spot. His bears shifted restlessly around him. Even Brutus, steady as stone, seemed eager for blood. Elias breathed slowly, his cybernetic eye glowing faintly in the dark. This was no skirmish. This was war. Tomorrow, he murmured, we show them what it means to fight humans on their own ground. At dawn, the attack began. Explosions ripped through the camp as Elias's charges detonated beneath fuel tanks. Fire engulfed the mechs, their silhouettes thrashing against the flames. Brutus roared as he thundered into the camp, scattering soldiers like insects. Ivory followed, slamming through barricades. Elias struck from the shadows, his rifle barking death. Ash and Ember wove through the chaos, tearing down soldiers before they could regroup. Drones swarmed overhead, but Elias had planned for that. Signal jammers screeched across the spectrum, sending them crashing into the snow. The Xyrr fought back fiercely. Plasma bolts scorched the earth. Sonic cannons shattered trees. Brutus staggered under a barrage, his fur smoking, but he fought on, crushing a mech beneath his massive weight. Ivory's roar cut through the din as she ripped through a squad. Elias found Overseer Xyrr at the heart of the camp, surrounded by guards. The alien towered, clad in heavy armor, wielding a blade of crackling plasma. Their eyes met across the battlefield. The Overseer sneered. Human, you should have died with your world. Elias raised his rifle. We don't die easy. The battle raged until the valley ran red with alien blood. Xyrr barely escaped, dragged away by his soldiers as Elias's bears closed in. The camp burned, smoke rising like a beacon. The Dominion had thrown an army into the wilderness and lost. And across the stars, whispers began to spread. The humans were not broken. The humans were fighting back. And they were not alone. The last roar. The valley burned for days after the battle with Overseer Xyrr. Charred mechs lay twisted in the snow, their hulks still steaming. Alien corpses littered the ground, half buried beneath ash and blood. The Dominion had lost heavily, but Elias knew they would return. They always returned. He crouched beside a ridge, surveying the horizon through his scope. Columns of smoke marked the alien construction sites. The terraforming station loomed in the distance, skeletal towers clawing at the sky. At its heart, a glowing power core pulsed like a second sun, the lifeblood of the Dominion's plan to remake Earth into a world for themselves. Elias's cybernetic eye adjusted, magnifying the scene. He counted rows of soldiers, mechs standing guard, and drones swirling like hornets. An army waited there. The Dominion had committed fully. If they finished the power core, the land would never recover. His jaw tightened. This ends now. Around him, his bears waited. Brutus, scarred but unbroken, growled low, eager for the fight to come. Ivory's white fur was streaked with blood, but her eyes gleamed fiercely. Ash and Ember paced restlessly, their youthful energy vibrating through every muscle. Elias placed a hand on Brutus's thick fur. One last fight, old friend. Then we make them remember. At dawn, the humans and their beasts descended. The first explosions tore through the Dominion's outer defenses, mines planted under cover of night, erupting into walls of fire. Mechs staggered, drones spun out of the sky, and panic spread through the ranks. Then the roars came. Brutus thundered forward, a living avalanche. He crashed into the alien lines, scattering soldiers like brittle twigs. His claws ripped open armor. His weight toppled war machines. Plasma bolts seared his flank, but he fought on, unstoppable. Ivory followed, slamming into a mech with enough force to snap its legs. Her jaws closed on a soldier's torso, hurling the body aside like paper. Ash and Ember darted through the chaos, ripping into troops before vanishing into smoke, striking again from the flanks. And Elias moved among them, a phantom of vengeance. His rifle spat death with every shot, each round placed with surgical precision. When ammunition ran dry, his blade flashed, carving through alien throats. The Dominion fought back with everything they had. Drones swarmed in formation, sonic blasts cracking the air, mechs stomping forward to form a wall of steel. Overseer Varix himself appeared, his armor gleaming, plasma blade humming like a storm. "Human," the Overseer roared. "You cannot stop the Dominion." Elias stepped forward, visor cracked, armor scorched. His voice was low, steady. "We are not fighting for victory. We are fighting to remind you who we are." The battle turned into a storm. Brutus slammed into a mech twice his size, claws raking through exposed joints. A plasma cannon fired point-blank into his chest. The great bear staggered, but did not fall. With a final, furious roar, he tore the mech's cockpit apart, and the explosion engulfed them both. "Brutus!" Elias shouted, voice raw. He stumbled forward, but the flames swallowed the beast. For a moment, the battlefield froze. Then rage ignited in his chest like fire. Ash and Ember howled, their fury doubling. Ivory's roar split the sky, a sound so primal it made even the Xyrr hesitate. Elias surged forward, his blade crackling as it clashed against the Overseer's plasma sword. Sparks lit the snow. Steel and energy screamed against each other. The alien towered over him, strength enhanced by cybernetics, but Elias fought with the fury of a dying world. Blow after blow shook the ground. The Overseer struck with power, Elias with precision. At his side, Ivory lunged, forcing the Overseer to split his focus. Ash tore at his leg, Ember at his arm. With a roar, Elias drove his blade into the Overseer's chest. The alien staggered, choking, and Elias ripped the blade free. The Overseer collapsed into the snow, his armor hissing, his life fading. The battlefield went silent. The Dominion soldiers, leaderless, faltered. Their drones fell from the sky. Their mechs stood idle. One by one, they broke, retreating into the wilderness, leaving behind the ruins of their mighty station. Elias stood in the smoking wreckage, chest heaving, his body battered. Beside him, Ivory leaned heavily, blood streaking her fur, but still alive. Ash and Ember licked their wounds, growling at the retreating aliens. Brutus was gone, but his sacrifice had shattered the Dominion's advance. The terraforming core flickered, destabilized by the battle. Elias watched it collapse in on itself, the explosion ripping the towers apart. The Dominion's grand plan died in fire and smoke. For the first time in years, Elias allowed himself to breathe. The war was not over. The Dominion would return. But the galaxy had heard whispers now, of a man who walked with bears, of beasts who tore down armies, of humans who refused to die. Elias lifted his face to the dawn sky. His voice was hoarse but steady. "We're not finished. Not now. Not ever." Ivory roared beside him, a sound that rolled across the valley like thunder. Ash and Ember joined her, their cries carrying into the heavens. Together, man and beast stood against an empire. And across the stars, the message spread like wildfire. The humans are still here, and they will never kneel.